In the future, everyone will be famous for 15 minutes. That quote is attributed to Andy Warhol, the film director and producer and artist who did a lot to influence the culture of the 60s and the 70s. In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Now, Andy Warhol never denied or admitted that he said this. It was attributed to him. And in the end, it doesn't really matter whether he actually said it, because if you study his life and the way in which he had a worldview and a certain personality, it seems right that that quote is attached to him. In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes. Now today, due to social media, the internet theater, podcasts, and thousands of channels on TV and movies, there are hundreds of people who are being called celebrities, personalities, influencers, stars. Now, I'd like to think I know a pretty fair amount of what's happening in the culture today, but every now and then I'll see something on the news or on the internet and I'll have a person's name who's a star, a celebrity, an influencer, something good happened to her, something bad happened to him, some accomplishments that they've been able to achieve. And I wind up saying to myself, who is this person? I've never heard of this person. And even more, should I know who this person is? And will I find out who this person is before his or her 15 minutes of fame are over? Now, how about you? Have you ever heard of this guy over here? Cajetan. Saint Cajetan to you. Today is his feast day. Okay, so maybe he's not the most popular saint you've ever heard of. Maybe he's not that well known in your circles. And you may be thinking, well, you have no idea who he is. And you ask me, well, do I need to know him? Should I know him? And my answer is yes, a resounding yes. You should know who Cajetan is, because I think he speaks to us in our own time. He's been an important saint in the church for about 600 years, over 600 years. So he's had more than his 15 minutes of fame. In today's gospel, we hear Jesus say that if you want to be his disciple, you have to take up your cross, deny yourself, and follow him. Now, Cajetan was born in Italy in 1480. He was born to a wealthy family. He went to law school, and after he became a lawyer, he served as a diplomat for the Pope. But something stirred in Cajetan's heart. See, as a young person, as a little boy, he was a very quiet child, and as he grew into his childhood, he was a very spiritual young man. And he heard throughout his life those words of Jesus. If you want to be my disciple, you must deny yourself, take up the cross, and follow him. Now, I think it's important that we understand right now that to deny yourself does not mean you forget who you are. It does not mean you forget where you came from. It doesn't mean that you're not able to say, well, these are my gifts, or these are my challenges, these are the things that make me who I am. No, that's not what Jesus is talking about. To deny yourself is to realize you are not the center of the world. To deny yourself is to realize you do not exist for yourself or by yourself. For Jesus, God is the center of the world, and we exist for God and to serve God. Cajetan came to understand this in his life, and that's why he went on to become a priest and to allow the Lord to get so deeply into him that he would then reveal Christ's presence, his love, and his mercy to other people. Now, Cajetan founded a religious community that combined both a monastic life of prayer and an active life of ministry, of service to others. And I think all these years later, he reminds us how important that is in being a disciple. That's part of taking up the cross, a life of prayer and a life of outreach to those in need. Because that's what Cajetan did in his life. And I think he still inspires us to this day. In his lifetime, he founded several hospitals. One was a hospital for those with incurable diseases. Another hospital that he founded was for people who were suffering from the plague. The bubonic plague was rampant at a certain time in his life, so he understood and wanted to serve people in their need for healing. But even more importantly, Cajetan was drawn to the fact that people needed an inner healing in their life. I think that's how Cajetan speaks to us today. We're certainly seeing the need for healing. We look at the last months and we think about our healthcare workers, those on the medical front lines, and all that they have done. We think about the struggles of what it's meant like for people to be in the hospital, to be sick. And we're painfully aware of the fact that there is not equal access to healthcare in our country and in our world. But I think all of us have also known this inner need we have for healing. And perhaps we've learned it and experienced it more in these last months than ever before. So this guy over here that you may never have heard of before, he would stand before you today and he'd call you by name and he'd say, hey, what do you need healing from today? Where's the healing needed in your life? What's the pain? What's the annoyance? What's the disappointment? What's the challenge that you are dealing with now in your life? To name it means you deny yourself, which is to say that you recognize this is not just about me. I need God. I can't do this alone. I need God to help me find the strength and the grace that will bring about the inner healing I need this and every day of my life. Now, in his life of service to others, Cajetan saw the poor, and he was very concerned that the institutions of the day were taking advantage of them, particularly institutions that lended money to them. They charged them terrible interest rates that they could never pay back. They experienced all kinds of prejudice against them in terms of giving them loans. So what Cajetan formed was what we would know as a credit union for the poor. It later became a rather well-known and strong bank in the country of Italy that still exists today, this bank. But what I am drawn toward is the fact that he called this institution that he formed to lend people money to help them, he called it the Mountain of Compassion. The Mountain of Compassion. So Cajetan today is the patron saint of those who are unemployed and those who are seeking work. And especially in these difficult times, Cajetan would stand with those who have lost their jobs because of the pandemic, and would stand with those who are experiencing financial challenges and trying to figure out what the next step is for them and their life and the life of their family. But Cajetan would also challenge all of us to say, are we doing our part to support and to aid all the social service ministries and institutions that are needed for people who are looking for work and those who are out of jobs and those who are in financial difficulties? And he would say to us, are you helping create a mountain of compassion, not just for 15 minutes, not just for the months that this pandemic will continue on, but rather for our entire lifetime? Are we working as a church to create a mountain of compassion? So you may not know who the latest TikTok stars are or YouTube influencers are. As I say that, someone is saying, I have no idea what you just said. But you do know today who Cajetan was and how this 16th century priest says something to us in our own time about the need for prayer, the need for healing, and the need to stand with others in their need. His confidence has to become our confidence that God has not abandoned us, that God is always with us. So what about you? Have you had your 15 minutes of fame yet? Or maybe you're still waiting for it. But why don't you if you're waiting for your 15 minutes of fame, why don't you today take 15 minutes and after this video, just think about Cajetan. Think about what this man we see here holding one hand up to point to God and another hand holding on to someone who is ill. What is this guy saying to you right now, today in your life? What does it mean for you to take up your cross, to deny yourself, and to follow Jesus? I believe that if Cajetan was around today, he'd have an Instagram page. Maybe this picture of him or him doing something else would be on that Instagram. But I do know that if he had that page, it would be these words he spoke centuries ago that he would post, that he would share with us, and that I ask you to reflect on today. He writes, "Do not waver in your purpose, because even if all the saints and every single creature should abandon you, God will always be near you, whatever your needs."